All right. Good afternoon, Carina. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Very good. Thank you. We're just chatting off air about how this is such a left field subject for myself on the podcast. But I heard you on SEN Radio, or not you personally, but Rachel from Wattle Nest on SEN Radio. And obviously she spoke about your sport and yourself in relation to that. And I thought, you know what, there's a good opportunity here to get some, get an interview or just a chat about trampolining, which is obviously your chosen sport. So do you want to talk about the sport in general first, a little bit about it? Because obviously anyone who isn't familiar with it would just assume it's, the one in the backyard where kids jump up and down on, but there's obviously a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Well,
and the fact that it's your chosen sport and it's going to be in the Olympics very shortly.
yeah. So, honestly, you're not wrong in people assuming that it is the backyard trampoline because that
Yep.
is where majority of us start. Having fun on that backyard trampoline, and I know that's where my coach started as well.
Right.
Back all the way back in the 1980s, I think he was competing. Um, so yeah, you're not wrong in that one. So trampoline as a sport has four different disciplines under that umbrella, and comes under the umbrella of gymnastics. Um, I mean, we traditionally you'd think about trampoline as your average trampoline, square, rectangle. Um, we jump on one of those. They're just very expensive, very good equipment. And we jump as high as we can, doing as many flips as we can in 10 skills. We call them skills. Trying to fit as many twists and flips in those 10 skills as possible, doing them to the best of our ability. So it's essentially jump as high as you can, flip as much as you can, as nice as you can, and there's a sport.
Wow. Okay. It seems simple.
I'm gonna put it that way.
I'm sure it's not. So is there a time limit to each event, like each skill set or whatever you want to call it? Is there a time you have to get this done by?
No, so we have our sport's a little bit different in the sense that we want our routine to take as long as possible.
Oh, okay.
Because we want to be jumping as high as possible.
Right.
So we have a time limit which we have to start in. We get up to 3 minutes to start our 10 skills, which is a very long time actually.
Yeah.
But then once we start those 10 skills, they need to be in sequence, so they're all back to back. And we want them to take as long as possible.
Right. So the 3 minutes obviously allows you to get as high as you can, generate the force, the height, to obviously. So I'm assuming the higher you are, the more time you got in the air, therefore you've got more time to do your twists and turns. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. That makes sense. So just back to the equipment. Why is it so expensive compared to a backyard trampoline? Is it just because it provides obviously that higher spring, or is it there other stuff to it?
Oh, I mean, personally, I don't really know, to be
Okay.
honest.
Yep.
But as is most sporting equipment, quality is as good as you can probably get in a trampoline. And then
Yep.
we use specific springs and a specific trampoline bed and a specific frame. And then you've got to get it all shipped over from Germany, and
Yeah. Wow.
it all just adds up.
And how is I'm assuming there's still a risk for injury, right? So how does that get mitigated in terms of protection? Are you surrounded by like gym mats everywhere, or is it sunk into the ground, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, so the trampolines are normally on flat ground, as you'd probably expect a backyard trampoline to be as well.
Yep.
We do have two mats on end frames that are connected to the trampoline. So if we fly off the end, we've got a mat to land on. And then those end frames and the trampoline are surrounded by ground mats as well. So we're definitely safe enough to be landing on the floor, even though that's not where we want to be landing.
Of course.
And we will normally have at least one coach standing to the side of the trampoline holding a throw mat as well. So they'll throw that underneath us if we need to. And that helps to negate the trampoline spring if we're landing a little bit wrong or we're feeling a little bit uncertain, or it just keeps us safe.
Absolutely. Wow. Talk about you've correct me if I'm wrong, you've won a world title, is that right? Yeah, talk to us about that, because again, this is a sport that's not mainstream, so not many people know what you can and can't do in terms of competition and events, and can you travel, and all these sorts of things. And we'll obviously get to the funding and stuff soon. But yeah, talk to me about the world title, when that was, how you won it, and anything else that's sort of relevant to that?
Yeah, so I was very lucky last year to be a part of the women's double mini team. So double mini is another of those disciplines in our sport.
Yep.
You can probably compare it a little bit to combining a trampoline with your traditional vault that you'd see in artistic gymnastics.
Okay.
We run up to it, we jump on the trampoline, we flip onto it, we flip off it. We do our best to land. It's 2 skills. It's a lot simpler.
Is it synchronized? Is that what?
No, it's just the one trampoline.
Okay.
But it looks a bit like that.
Right.
So you jump on the slopey bit, then you jump on the flat bit, then you jump off.
Okay.
It's very fun. I really enjoy it. So I was very lucky to be a part of the Australian team with 3 other beautiful women last year for the 2022 World Championships in Sofia. Actually wearing that shirt. And we went into the competition with the goal of medaling because we had come 4th many a time, which hurt us a lot.
Sure, yeah.
And so I know personally anyway, we qualified for the team final, and when we walked out of our hotel room that morning, I was like, I'm going to bring back a bronze medal. Like, we are going to bring back a bronze medal. And only 3 out of 4 your 4 team members compete in this team final, and every score counts.
Okay.
So like everything's on the line here. And yeah, we went into the final with the goal of just enjoying ourselves, having fun, and doing what we do best. And we managed to walk away with gold, which was very, very cool. So it was a bit nice walking out of the hotel room going, oh yeah, I'm going to bring back a bronze. And I'm like, oh yeah, we won.
That's awesome. Well done. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So how many countries compete in this sport? Like, how many countries were there at this world titles?
So it depends on the discipline, to be honest. With our Domini team final, their top 5 teams go into that final. I think last year in women's Domini there were 6 teams. But compared to men's individual trampoline, there were 88 competitors.
Wow.
And for the women, there were, I think, 70 or high 60s. Yeah, so there are a fair few people that compete. Which is very cool. I guess that means that's why we're in the Olympics. But that's why you'll only see individual trampoline in the Olympics as well, is because there's not enough competitors at the moment in double mini or tumbling, which is our other main discipline.
Okay, that makes sense. What is it like at these competitions? Is it quite ruthless in terms of the competition? Like, are you guys sort of standoffish to each other in regards to, your competitors, or are you quite friendly and there's a bit of banter and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are surprised when they come to a trampoline competition. No one's mean to each other. Like, there's no standoffishness. We're all supporting each other. Everyone's cheering for everyone. It's such a beautiful environment, and I really love competing with the group of people that I get to compete with. It's amazing.
Wow, that's cool. That's good to hear. So talk to us about your training regime. I'm assuming it's going to be very specific to your sport. What type of training do you do other than obviously, practicing the trampoline itself? Do you do any strength training? Do you do any cardio-based training, endurance, stretching, mobility? What's the regime like? And is it full on? Like, are you training, 40 hours a week in preparation for the Olympics, or how does it all break down?
So again, I think I'm going to surprise a few people here. So I'm on the trampoline for 6 sessions a week. Each session is only 2 hours at maximum. So I'm only on the trampoline 12 hours a week. And that is to try and mitigate any overuse injuries, of which we see a lot because we're a high impact sport. And especially being female, the calcium deficiency that we naturally have, bones are they're not happy about the high intensity stuff. So we do our best.
All right.
Off the trampolines, I'm in the gym only twice a week at the moment. And that's about an hour, 2 hour sessions, depending on how I decide I want to go about it. My training is majority resistance training. So I do a lot of lifting, a lot of strength, a lot of combined movements over single muscle movements. And all of my cardio is on the trampoline. So that's all done in those 12 hours. I don't do any extra cardio training. I undertake mobility every day. with a minimum of 8 minutes just after training, up to half an hour in the morning, depending on what my schedule allows for. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. So within a week, did you because you mentioned off air you're studying as well. So do you hold down a job as well on top of that to obviously pay to live? Yep. Okay. So yeah, it's a pretty busy week by the sounds of it then, when you put all that together, right?
Yes. Yes. I'm very lucky that my job is coaching where I train. But I am normally working 13 to 15 hours a week. And then I am currently doing a master's degree. So there's studying on top of that, and then all my training, and it keeps me busy.
In terms of time management and obviously managing stress, and you get to the back end of a semester at uni, and obviously your assessments are due and stuff like that, but you still got to train. I'm assuming you get up early to do certain things. So do you find you can manage that relatively well, or does sometimes it just gets a little bit better of you and you feel a little bit overwhelmed?
Oh, I think as everything, it all implodes sometimes. I'm very lucky to have a fantastic support team around me. ACU has a fantastic elite athlete program who I've only just started my master's, and they've been as supportive as ever. So that's fantastic. As well as coaches are understanding, boss is understanding, which is why I really enjoy where I work, because they see me train, so they get it.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Unreal. What about nutrition? Is there anything specific that you do or have to eat to support not only the training, but energy-wise and all these sorts of things? Obviously nutrition plays a big role in any sport, so I'm assuming there's a component to that for you.
Yeah. So I work with a dietitian, which honestly, she's my lifesaver. I follow her nutrition plan, but there are no set meals or anything like that. It's more portion sizes. So we've mapped out all my portion sizes of carbs, proteins, and veg, dependent on my training schedule for the day. So if I'm doing a double session, I'll have a heavier carbs in like at lunch or at breakfast, depending on my timing. And there might be a few more snacks through that day. Whereas on a day like a recovery day, there's normally less carbs and more protein to try and help facilitate that recovery. I personally also have to eat more calcium, or try and do my best to get more calcium and iron in my diet, because that lovely female triad really, really affects me. But yeah, it's honestly super simple, which is lovely. Like, there's nothing specific we have to really focus on, which is great. It's more just making sure that our body has the fuel that it needs.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Out of curiosity, I don't know if you know this, do you know any sort of guide as to how many calories you would burn when you train for 2 hours on the trampoline, or even what your heart rate would get up to? I'm fascinated by that.
My heart rate, so I wear this lovely little band when I train. Actually, I wear it 24/7, and it tracks everything. And it likes to tell me that my heart rate during training spans from about 60 to 90% max. Sometimes we get up into that 90 to 100 max range as well. Depending on the day and how I'm feeling. Calorie wise, haven't done the calculations.
That's all right. I was just curious.
But yeah, the heart rate does get up there, and it tends to spike a lot more, because we'll get on the trampoline, it'll spike, and then we'll get off and recover, and then get on and spike and get off, recover.
Absolutely. So do you find, I'm going off on a tangent here, but do you find, like, when you're in, whether it be competition or training, and you're obviously, for lack of a better term, excuse my naivety here, jumping up and down, are you aware that your heart rate, are you like short of breath? Are you aware that you're fatiguing? Like, how does your mind operate when you're flipping and jumping and things?
Honestly, it doesn't click in that way until after we get off. I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe. But we do have to be reminded quite a bit that we need to breathe through our skills, because in a routine, ideally, we want this routine to be taking 30 to 40 seconds. And you can't go that long without breathing, we've found out. So yes, we do get quite out of puffed, but it's not something that quite makes it into the mindset in the middle of the air, because you're thinking about everything else, like, oh, I've got to set my arms properly, and I've got to kick out at this time, and I've got to hold down to the bed and stay tight to make sure that the next one goes up.
Yeah, wow.
And then you get off and you go, oh my God, I'm tired.
Oh dear. Yeah. So just on that, so you're talking about like you're midair and you're thinking about your next maneuver. Do you go through that in your mind before you actually do the event or the discipline? In terms of where you need to be, how you need to position yourself, where your arms go, all that sort of stuff. Are you constantly rehearsing that in your mind so you know the sequence?
Yeah. So my pre-comp routines specifically, I know everyone's is different, but mine specifically involves some visualization, and then I'll run through as I'm visualizing. I'll keep my eyes open and I'll go through the movements, like just kind of moving my body minutely just to kind of start those fast action muscles. But it's the main thing to us is cue words, and I know majority of people will use cue words in our sport because that's what our coaches do as well. They'll cue us while we're on the trampoline, so you try and replicate those cues as much as you can. And while we're competing, our coaches can't talk to us.
Oh, really? Okay.
No. So we're a bit unique that way, in the sense that if our coaches talk to us, we get a deduction.
Right.
And so we do our best not to have that happen.
Geez, that must be hard for them.
As a coach, it can be sometimes, because it's just out of habit. You want to go call out, you can't.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be very challenging to do. But I guess if that's the rules, that's the rules.
Yeah, and I mean we train that way too. So it almost gets to the point where you're imagining your coach calling as you go through the motions, which is not a bad thing, because it means it becomes subconscious, which is fantastic.
Repetition, yeah. 100%.
Very much so.
Wow. Okay. So talk to me about the Olympics. So if I remember correctly, trampolining was an exhibition sport at a previous Olympics. Is that right? Am I thinking?
So we've been in the Olympics since 2000.
Okay.
But before that, I think we were an exhibition sport 1996, I think, or 92. I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Okay. So it was officially a sport from Sydney.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So what's the qualification process? Do you have to be a certain ranking, or do you have to go through a series of events to qualify as an Australian? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's a bit of both.
Okay.
We have two ways that we can qualify to the Olympics.
Yep.
Either through our World Cup circuit, which started back in July and will finish in April.
Okay.
Or through World Championships, which are coming up, and placing top 8 in the final.
Right.
Only one person from each country can qualify a spot.
Wow.
And that spot is not a named spot. So if you qualify it, it's still not yours until you are named on the team.
Is that right? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Pressure.
Yes. Our World Cup circuit is a little bit more convoluted than that.
Right.
Essentially, you go to all these World Cups, you perform, you rank, and then through those rankings, you get points.
Yep.
And then it's the top 12, I think, people who rank, or top 12 countries, I should say, who rank on that World Cup circuit after the top 8 from World Championships are taken out.
Okay.
So it's done again on an individual basis, and you can only get one spot for your country, and it's still not a named spot until you're named on the team by the Australian Olympic Committee.
Wow. Okay. And so, all right. So what year are we in? So 24 next year. So the Olympics is next year. So when do they name that in terms of lead time? Is it next year? Is it this year? Or how does that all work?
Yeah. So it's most likely, we don't have a date, but it's most likely that it will be named after our national championships, because that's normally the final selection event.
Okay.
Depending on what the World Cup circuit looks like at the end of next year. Okay. If both New Zealand and Australia don't qualify a spot in either of the two ways, then we go into what's called Oceania Championships. And Oceania gets allocated a spot for the region, and we battle it out. And whichever country wins gets the spot.
So does Oceania include Pacific Islands and things like that, or is it purely just Australia and New Zealand?
It does. I'm pretty sure it would, but we don't have any competitors at the moment from those regions, as much as we would love to see them come and participate.
Sure. Okay. Wow, what a ruthless way to have to get into the Olympics. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it is the Olympics, so it's the echelon of competitive sport, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So I don't know where to go from here in regards to how. So I'm trying to think of an appropriate way to ask this. Like, where are you positioned at the moment? Are you and do you feel you're going to be in a position to potentially make that spot?
So I am. First of all, this is my first year as a senior on any individual trampoline team. So
Okay.
I'm very new to this, and
Yep.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity to start developing in this role.
Okay.
For the moment, Paris 2024 might be on the cards if I get lucky.
Okay.
It was an aim, but the first couple of World Cups didn't quite go to plan, and that was okay.
Yep.
We're using this as a development cycle now, and I'm targeting 2028 more so than 24.
Fantastic.
So I'm really grateful and really proud to be part of a team that looks like we're gonna get an Olympic spot for the men and the women.
Oh, good.
And to help those guys to get there too.
Yeah, absolutely. So if 28 is your main focus, does that mean you will still be eligible or competing for 32 in Brisbane?
Yeah,
Oh, no, that's exciting.
That's what my coaches are trying to convince me to stay for.
Obviously, you'll be slightly older then, but that shouldn't matter.
We'll see how the body's going.
Yeah. Well, actually, that raises an interesting point, because from what I know about obviously top competition in gymnastics, floor gymnastics and stuff, it's very much a youthful sport, right? Is trampolining the same, and is that just due to the durability or the high impact of the sport?
To be honest, I think we're seeing that change across all gym sports.
Okay.
I think we're actually seeing the median age of senior athletes get older, which is fantastic. It means that people are starting to look after their bodies more.
Yep.
We're starting to find some longevity in our sport, which is awesome. I know that our only back-to-back Olympic champion for trampoline, Rosie McLennan from Canada, I believe she was 32 at her last Olympics in 2021.
Okay.
And a lot of other people I know haven't retired until their late 20s, early 30s either. And that was mostly because they were like, I want to go start a family, and not because their bodies couldn't take it, which is good.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's really good for the sport, because obviously, the assumption, or, I've made it as well, is that given its high impact, and I'm assuming gymnastics is very similar, the body without the sports science that we have now is broken down over time, or you've got injuries that you have to try and overcome and things like that. So that's really good that you can be 32 and obviously top of your game still.
Yeah. It is really good. And I think it used to be that, you go to one Olympics and you're done.
Yep.
Whereas now people are going, but I could stay and do 2, but then it's a short cycle and it's only 3 years, so maybe I'll do 3.
Yep.
And it's just lengthening the life of our athletes more, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. Oh, that's exciting. We'll be watching with great interest over the next 18 months, or actually it's less than that now, isn't it? 12 months.
It is. Yeah. We have a countdown on our training board of days to Paris, and we're about to break the 300. And one of my training partners is panicking a little bit over that.
So they take obviously an individual. Is there like a backup spot in case there's injury or anything like that? Or if that happens, you just get called in later?
Yeah, so they'll name the primary gymnast and they'll name a reserve.
Okay.
And the reserve will get called up if the primary gymnast gets injured or can't compete.
Okay.
Up until a certain point. I believe once the athlete's in the village, for trampoline anyway, because Australia doesn't take their reserves over. Once the athlete is in the village, the reserve won't get called, I believe. Yep. Don't quote me on that though.
No, I understand. All right, so let's talk about funding, the cost of doing this sport, because as I said, it's not mainstream, so I'm assuming there's not a lot of sponsorship dollars, there's not a lot of funding from the government or anything like that. And obviously talk about the assistance from Wattleness too, because they obviously have played a big part in getting you to this point.
Yeah, of course. So we are really lucky, as I said before, that we fall under the umbrella of gymnastics, which means that any support that the government gives to Gymnastics Australia can get divvied up towards trampoline as well. However, that is only individual trampoline. So the disciplines that are non-Olympic miss out completely from the get-go.
Right.
So up until this point, we've been doing it fully self-funded.
Wow.
I started competing internationally in 2013 or 2012, sorry. So it's been 11 years, and mum and dad funded every single dollar.
Wow. So we're talking international flights, accommodation, equipment,
entry fees, food.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Good
Uniforms.
on
We
Dad.
don't get given our uniforms. We buy them.
Oh, is that right? Holy
Yeah.
wow.
So yeah, I honestly so grateful to mum and dad for that. Couldn't have done it without them.
100%. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
fantastic.
when Rachel came along with the wattle nest, it was a dream come true. Like, what she was trying to do for athletes like me was something that we'd never seen before. And I cannot express how grateful I am for Rachel and to have her come across my path, because she is making this so much easier and just allowing me to be able to train and fulfill my full potential,
Yeah, wow.
by not having to worry about, oh, am I going to be able to pay the rent? No, I can't meet my nutrition needs this week because I can't afford it.
Yep.
And so because of that, I'm going to Worlds, and I don't have to, like, I'm not having to find money for that, which is amazing. I've never had to do that. Like, I've never done that before. So that's really, really cool and very exciting. And I'm so grateful and thankful to her and to everyone who has come together with Rachel to support athletes like us. Yeah, I think it's amazing what she's doing. And I really, really hope that people get on board behind her, because it's so needed, especially with 2032 being here in Brizzy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So explain what she actually does, because obviously she sources funding for you guys for lesser known sports, because I had a look at her website and she's got a massive caliber of athletes there that are doing sports that you wouldn't even think of.
Yeah, so Rachel and the Wattle Nest look to find corporate sponsors and support for athletes who have very little to no funding. Pretty much anyone who's not professional, which is about 1% of the athlete population. So that's essentially what she does. And in doing that, she sets up events to help support us, and she invites people from far and wide with her connections to try and get behind us and try and get people behind these athletes who people aren't aware aren't funded. I think that's a really that was something that's been made really, really known to me over the past 6 months. People aren't actually aware that their top athletes don't get anything for doing their sport. They get enjoyment, and that's about it.
They do it for love.
They get enjoyment and bills.
Yeah.
That's it. So, and her advocacy, I think, is going to go a long way in developing the next generation of athletes, especially for 2032. And having 2032 in our backyard means that, personally anyway, I think means that people are going to get behind us, which is amazing. And Rachel's already got so many people on board, and she's working so hard. But there's even sports on there that people think are fully funded all the time, like swimmers and athletics. And I was astounded to find out that athletics gets nothing like we do. I thought they got things as well, but apparently not, which you'd think they would with the amount of funding that goes towards it.
Yes.
So
they're probably more high profile than you too.
Yeah. Like a lot. Well, athletics is something that everyone knows about, right?
Correct.
So it's very interesting to hear what she's finding out and sourcing the information, and then seeing how she's helping not just me, but so many different athletes from so many fields is remarkable.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, like you said, with her support, you've managed to get to, world championships and top tier competitions, which you potentially may not have achieved, or you would have to ask mum and dad for some more help.
Well, especially with it being in England this year as well. The pound to the Australian dollar is not great at the moment.
No, it's not. No. So where do you see the future of the sport? Like, obviously we've hit the Olympics. It's going to be a mainstay there, given it's been there since 2000. But do you see it becoming professional at any given time? Is there going to be an opportunity for you to make a living out of it, or is it simply just a sport of passion than anything else?
I don't think there will ever be a way for me to make a living out of competing in trampoline, because I think that would require some change of our code of points to facilitate the necessary viewership and spectatorship and interest. Personally, I think it's quite an interesting sport, but it's just not put out there enough for people to go, oh, wow. And then sometimes it can take, like, things can be a little bit too repetitive sometimes as well. Even I'll say that. With athletes, you know, you'll see a lot of athletes do very similar routines because we're trying to get to the same difficulty levels as each other. So
I understand.
I can understand how it's not necessarily entirely a spectatorship sport, but with how things are changing, we might see a change in that. Who knows?
You never know. You might be asked to perform at a Krusty Demons event or something like that.
Well, that is the only way we can really make a living out of this, right? Is by when we retire, we've seen a lot of athletes go through to Cirque du Soleil. And that being our, like, I know that's probably the main facet of where athletes go to afterwards, if they're quite performer centric. I don't know.
It's an option, isn't it?
Always.
And it's very, very well respected and followed. So I'm sure there's going to be some opportunity at some point, given particularly if there's a high level of success and repeated success, then obviously that will bring more attention and profile.
Yeah, you hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to applaud Wilderness for what they're doing, because without them, as you mentioned, the spotlight wouldn't be on you at all, or very little. You might get a little blurb in the paper here and there, but that's about it. So that's fantastic that they're doing.
Well, I mean, with all of that, I've looked in the paper the other day and there was a 2-page spread of my photo, and I was that's insane.
How good.
Monday Morning Courier Mail a couple of weeks back, I was like, okay, that's cool.
There you go. That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, that's what they're doing. So that's really good. So who knows? Like, that might generate more momentum, and 5 years time, or even for 2032, you guys might be at the forefront of the team.
You hope so. Yeah, maybe.
Pretty exciting. Yeah, fingers crossed, 100%. So when is this event in England? Is that towards the end of this year?
Yeah, so it's coming up pretty quickly. I actually leave for England on the 22nd of October.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and our competition starts on the 9th of November.
Okay.
So we'll go over for a pre-training camp. Or pre-comp camp, and then go into comp mode when we get into the arena, have a couple of training sessions, and then it's go time.
Wow. Okay. And this is a world title?
Yep, this is World Championships.
World Championships. Okay, cool. Yep. And in terms of the setup, are they just like at an indoor venue? Is it? And then they just obviously set it up in accordance to that. And do you operate, that's the wrong word. Do you participate one at a time, or are there multiple people trampolining at once?
So there will only ever be one male and female going at the same time.
Okay.
So the way our trampolines are set up is we get a choice of 2, but they're normally facing each other like this. So the men will be over on this side and the women will be over this side, and there'll be like 2 set up like that, side by side.
Yep.
And they can have a men's competitor going and a women's competitor going with 2 panels of judges.
Right. Is that
and then
another person moving?
Depends who's on the other side.
Okay.
If it's one of my training partners, sometimes, but
right.
you learn to narrow in.
Okay.
But then on top of that, you've also got people running at the double mini and people running down the tumbling floor in the same arena. So it's you get used to it. You create almost a little bubble when you get on the trampoline.
It'd be fascinating to know what you're thinking, and how, just as you're spinning around on all axes, it must be just. Yeah, I'd be freaking out.
I mean, we try not to think too much for that reason.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, fair enough. I suppose you just go into sort of a mode of robotic behavior where it's just from all the hours of training, right? Oh, wow, that's fascinating. What a sport. That's very, very cool. So is it can you watch it online? Is it available to be viewed?
That's a really good question that I can't answer.
Okay.
Most likely all our qualification routines will be uploaded to YouTube.
Okay.
And then all the semifinals and finals will also probably be live streamed on YouTube. But we won't find out until the orientation meeting, which is like 2 days before the competition. SBS sometimes actually will put us on SBS, which
Okay.
I was flicking through channels one day and saw a replay of my World Cup final there last year.
Oh, cool.
That was kind of
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I have seen that SBS is starting to cover trampoline more, or
Right.
trampoline and gymnastics in general more, which is very
Okay.
cool.
Yep.
But they obviously won't do it live. It'll be after the rights have been released from the FIG. So I'm going to go out on a limb and probably say YouTube's best bet here.
Okay. Fantastic. And you just said FRG. Is that the governing body?
FIG, yeah, the
FIG.
Federation of International Gymnastics.
Ah, very cool. Okay. All right. Unreal. Well, look, I'll wind it up now, Carina. Thank you so much. It's been fascinating. I like many people that probably will listen to this, knew nothing about the sport other than, like I said at the very start, the one in your backyard, which I actually have. I'm looking at one right now for my kids, but they're certainly not doing what you can do. That's for sure. And I'll finish like I do with every podcast I have a guest on, and that is personality question, and that is, who would you like to invite over for dinner? So if you could invite anyone over for dinner, male, female, alive or dead, fictional, non-fictional, who would you have over? And it can be more than one if you like. It's a good question because it makes you think. Do you have a fan favorite? Do you have a I don't know, someone you admire, someone who inspires you, or someone you just liked when you were a kid? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think I would love to sit down and have a conversation over dinner with Rhiannon Ifland, who is one of Australia's premier, and actually the world's premier cliff divers.
Wow.
Who started in trampoline.
Okay, there's another avenue.
Cliff diving, yes.
Yeah, cliff diving makes a reasonable income, because it's sponsored by Red Bull, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Oh, there you go. I didn't realize there was a parallel there. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So, have a chat with her. So she's obviously a very successful cliff diver and has been for quite a while.
Yeah, just the way that she's able to get up on the platform and just seem to zero in every single time to do the same thing every single time, the same way, is absolutely fascinating. And I would love an insight into her mental game.
Yeah, 100%. Just and obviously, it's stated in the obvious, but you can't have a fear of heights when you're doing something like that, or even trampolining for that matter. But to get into the zone and force yourself to jump off what is a couple of 100 meters high.
Yeah, well, they jump off, I think the females jump off of 21 meters, I want to say.
Sorry, I exaggerated.
I'd love to try cliff diving, but I think I'd get up to the top and get too scared.
I never say never. Never say never. You never know.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. That's right. Oh, well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Carina. Thank you so much for giving up your time. And I know you've got in heading into the World Championship. So best of luck for that. I'll obviously follow along on your Instagram. Is that the best place to keep
most likely. Okay. I'm really bad at updating it though. So Trampoline Sports Australia is our team Instagram, and that's where we'll probably be putting daily updates up there. And that'll be where any live stream updates go to as well.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, I'll put them in their tag in the show notes, and that way people can obviously follow along if they're interested to do so. So fantastic. So thank you once again. Best of luck.
Thank you.
I will be watching with keen interest now that we've had a chat and see how things go, and then obviously lead into Paris, which will be very exciting.
Yes.
Obviously, whether you make it or not, it's still going to be represented by your sport, which will be pretty cool.
Yeah, very much so.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you once again, and best of luck in the remainder of your competitions.
Thank you.